Charlie Sykes, welcome, welcome.
Hey, it is great to be back. It's great to be anywhere.
I feel that so deeply in my bones.
Yeah, I know.
We were talking about Donald Trump's wildly unsuccessful presidency by every metric, but I'm going to read these numbers to
Yeah,
you and set you up here as we
yeah.
say. A steady fall into the abyss for Trump's net approval. He is now at a term 2 low,
Mhm.
down. He's 18 points down. Big reason why independents, Trump's at negative 45 with independents. Worse for
Amazing.
any president at this point in term 2, worse even than Richard Nixon at the height of Watergate.
This is actually amazing. This is quite an achievement for Donald Trump. And I just want to bounce something off of you and some people might like recoil from what I'm about to say, but Donald Trump's second term presidency could easily have been politically successful if he had been
Right.
remotely normal. If he had not screwed up the economy, if he had not imposed the tariffs, if on immigration, he had just focused on actually going after, as he said, the worst of the worst and criminals, secure the border. If he had actually followed through on his promise not to engage in wars. But think about what he has done to his own approval rating with the constituencies that elected him. And the extraordinary thing about those numbers is how he is cratering with Latinos, with working class voters, with young voters. And there are no, I'm sorry to use this term, exogenous events that are driving this. This is all Trump's decision. These are his choices. He comes into office. The Democrats are demoralized. One institution after another is caving to him. The oligarchs are sucking up to him. A normal president could have run with that. What did Donald Trump do? He has squandered the very constituency, the very, coalition that he had assembled against great odds.
Yeah.
And he squandered it with tariffs, terror on the streets, and war.
Yeah.
Those are all his own decisions. So this is, and I described this yesterday as kind of the chronicle of political self-destruction that we're seeing from Donald Trump. Nobody made him do any of those things. This all
Mhm.
flows from his character and his choices, doesn't it?
Yeah, there were so many times, and I think he benefited from this in his first term, where Trump would say, "I'm gonna do something crazy," and everyone would say, "No, he's not," and you'd take
Yeah.
him seriously, and people would say, "No, you gotta take him
Yeah.
you can't take him seriously, you have to take him literally, you can't take
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
technically, you can't." Remember that dumb we
I do.
spent months arguing with that woman from the Republican Oppo,
Right.
Selena
Yeah. Wow. I
Zito?
haven't heard that name in quite a while. Yeah.
Saying that you had to, he represented just a lot of really stupid discourse. And
A
ultimately,
lot of
Trump would
cope.
write a lot of coke
Yeah.
and some seethe, and that he would ultimately be talked out of it, or the
Right.
people surrounding him would tell him he couldn't do stuff like,
Yeah.
whatever, bomb. Remember when he wanted to bomb drug cartels and they told him he couldn't?
Right. Or
Uh,
shoot protesters.
Right, shoot protesters, and they told him I couldn't. This time, he can just do that stuff, and he does that stuff.
That's right. No, it's hard to overstate how different Trump 2.0 is from Trump 1.0. And we knew it. We were predicting that this is not going to be the same sort of thing. He's not going to have those guardrails of those grown-ups in the room. But I have to say that it's exceeded our worst expectations because not only has he surrounded himself with yes mediocrities, male and female, but he's surrounded himself with this sort of Greek chorus of people telling him, do whatever you want. You are wonderful. You are the great liberator of the world. And so what you're seeing is a presidency of pure raw id. And
Mhm.
how is it working out for him right now? And there's a disconnect and a cluelessness. That press conference he gave, that presser where he's supposed to be talking about what's happening in Iran, and he
Right,
interrupts it for what he really wants to talk about. I mean, Donald Trump was bored with peace. He's
right.
bored with war, but he's super jazzed about the ballroom. And he wants to talk about the ballroom. I mean, how do you look at that and go, what ferrets are running around in that guy's prefrontal cortex?
And there's a clip of him on the plane
Yeah.
talking about the Doric versus the Ionic, what
Yeah,
the
but
what kind of
The Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, best
right.
book.
That's the best book,
Corinthians, best
best
pillars.
column. Yeah, and the optic of, boots on the ground, which is
Yeah.
this we don't know, maybe happening, maybe not happening,
Right.
and oil, I've seen Goldman Sachs have a very real conversation about $200 a barrel oil, which would be catastrophic. It's already crude is higher,
Yeah.
oil is higher, gas, we're $4 gas, which hasn't happened since, you'll remember, we haven't seen $4 gas since 2022.
Right, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and
Yeah.
it was temporary. Now again, go back to the fact that he inherits a really strong economy, right? He inherits a strong economy, and
Mhm.
what does he do? Everything that's happening now is the result of Donald Trump blowing things up. The war in Iran was a war of choice. It was a war of whim. We didn't have to do this. None of this had to happen. And so we're talking about $4 a gallon gas. It could go higher. The alliance is completely shattered. The effects on the economy are going to ripple through. This is not something that Donald Trump can now just hit a switch and it will be okay, that it will go away. And the fact that, and again, this how strange it is that clearly he wants to talk about anything other than what's going on, which would suggest that even though we've apparently won this war about 18 times, somebody should actually compile all the times we have declared victory in this war. It's sort of like people who quit
Right.
smoking 150 times. That's Donald Trump. And I have to say, I did my podcast yesterday with Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, who used to
Oh, yeah.
command,
He's
who
great.
fought in combat in
Very
Iraq,
smart.
was the commanding general in Europe. And he was talking about all the problems of putting boots on the ground in Carg Island. In fact, the
Oh,
phrase he
yeah.
uses, he thinks the Marines are going to be sitting ducks there.
Oh, yeah.
And the big question is anyone telling Donald Trump, is anybody warning Donald Trump about that?
Well, you know who is warning Donald Trump about that? This is like the setup to end all setups here. Laura Ingraham, who said, I don't make that face. Don't make,
Yeah.
I did not do it, but I'm just going to read you what she said because I'm very smart. And also because I saw this on the internet and it absolutely struck me. Okay. Ingram, like many Trump allies, treats him like he lacks agency and is easily misled, which I think is important. Okay. So she says, for instance, was the president fully briefed about all the risks from this from the beginning? And was he able to understand the complexity of this? So I think it is really
Kind of fundamental
interesting.
questions. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And also, the other thing is that so we had that, then we had the Wall Street Journal, also owned by Rupert Murdoch, just a data point here, saying that Trump had sort of talked to them and said, maybe we won't reopen the straits. You'll remember the straits are closed as a direct result
Right.
of Donald Trump's intervention.
Yes. They they
Yeah.
they 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 are. And what did he say this morning? He's basically trolling the Europeans in England, saying, "Well, go get your own oil." Well,
Yeah.
so maybe he's, one option is he could simply declare victory and say, "No, we don't even have to open the strait," which would mean that even while he's declaring victory, the whole world is looking like, "What did you just do?"
Right.
There are certain prime directives in every administration. You and I have talked about this. And my disappointment with the Biden administration was one prime directive is to prevent the return of Donald Trump to power. Okay, that's
Right.
number one.
They
What
they
was the
messed
prime?
that up. That was
But
very
but there's
disappointing.
also a prime directive that Trump had, which is
Right.
the prime directive of every president, which is do not fuck up the economy. You
Right.
can do everything. If you get the economy right, you can get away with almost everything. So what does
Yeah.
Donald Trump do? In his arrogance, in his hubris, he has managed to fuck up the American and the world economy in such a way
Mhm.
that it's going to be hard to fix. And by the way, he's losing, one ally after another. Do you see these recent developments? Spain has closed its airspace to the United States for its military operations. Not probably a big deal. But now Italy has
Right.
also done it. And Maloney was one of Trump's better friends, was willing to cut
Yeah.
him a lot of slack. So you're seeing, Europe turn against him one after another, which is why Donald Trump wants to talk about the ballroom rather
Yeah.
than Iran. And
And
apparently, by the way, yes, go on.
no, I was just gonna say, to your point about Maloney, her defense
Maloney.
minister was caught was caught in the Middle East because
Yeah.
he had no heads up of what was happening,
Yeah.
and so he was stuck there.
Yeah, no, and so I think the whole world is asking the same sort of question. Now, we always have that evergreen question. So when is the MAGA base going to break with Donald Trump? And let's be honest about it. I mean, the polls are not suggesting that's happening with the base. However, what is different this time is that the MAGA base is seeing and hearing this particular debate. And that's different because, generally they exist in that alternative reality silo where none of the criticism of Donald Trump even penetrates. They don't even know about it. But that's different this time because you are getting voices like this. I actually saw some tweet. I mean, even Ann Coulter is breaking with him. And when you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ann Coulter and they're attacking Fox News and you have Laura Ingraham, there is a different dynamic here. And I
Hmm.
think the different dynamic is people are thinking, this could turn really, really sour. This could go south.
Yeah.
Who's going to own it? He faced a political disaster before launching the war in Iran. I think it's gotten exponentially worse, especially because if Laura Ingraham is asking this question, I mean, think how fundamental that is. Because you know what let me translate it into English. Did Donald Trump have any idea what he was doing? Does he have any idea what he is
Right.
doing? Kind of basic.
Yeah. I also think, again, so much of this admin, you can see who's leaking. Right, like,
Yes.
you'll see where the leaking is coming from, and it feels to me, and again, this is just a guess, this is not, but I've been covering this chaos, as have
Hmm.
you, for since what I was in my
Forever.
30s, and I was
Oh,
young, and my
yeah.
skin had this nice sort of give to it,
Yeah.
which it doesn't have anymore. Um,
It sure looks
a
like it.
Oh,
Looks good.
thank you.
You're looking good. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
you
Well,
are. Yeah.
I'm in the state of preservation here. But what's leaking, right? Who's leaking what? And it sort of feels like the Pentagon is leaking a lot.
This is a very sophisticated take because if when you see these stories, you have to sort of like reverse engineer them. Like,
Right.
how did this get out,
Right.
and in whose interest is this leak? And you're
Right.
seeing more and more leaks that are sort of designed to say it wasn't me. We warned them. I want to cover my
Mhm.
ass. When this, in fact, turns to complete bleep, I want to
Right.
have been, on the record saying that I didn't do that. So you are seeing this. Now, some of this may be people who are opposed to the administration in general, but I think it's also within the administration itself because
Yeah.
imagine being in the room if you're a general or even if you're a reasonably rational person and Pete Hegseth is there. I sort of have this image of in the Oval Office, various sober counsel to the president about,
Yeah.
how we need to wind this down. And then Pete Hegseth rips off his shirt and he's standing there in all of his tattoos and he's beating his breast and saying, no, we must be lethal. We must be vicious. We must bring down the
Yeah.
wrath of God to,
Yeah.
guide every single,
Yeah.
bullet into the head of every single Iranian. I mean, the
Yeah.
stuff that Pete Hegseth is saying now,
It's nuts.
it is beyond, I mean, it's for people who were alarmed about that weird extremist Christian nationalist streak. Just read the kinds of things that he is
Yeah.
saying, the prayers that he's saying. I don't think the summaries actually do justice to actually how unhinged this guy is. And he is certainly one of the people who has Trump's ear. Now, whether he's the only, and he's obviously not the only one, but why are we still there? Why are we still doing this? Who's telling Trump that this is a good idea?
Yeah.
Besides Benjamin Netanyahu, MBS, and Pete
Yeah.
Hegseth.
These are lives. Like, these are
Yes.
lives. And ultimately, there are a lot of Americans going to the Middle East right now. And it does not feel like we have this incredibly skilled military that has
Yeah.
billions of
Yeah.
dollars. But if the leadership is leading it into a quagmire or not listening to the top brass, which is certainly what it seems like from the way these leaks are coming and going, a lot of people could die for seemingly no reason.
Well, exactly. What was this for? I mean, especially since Donald Trump has declared that it's all over and that we have obliterated
Yeah.
we have changed the regime. We've obliterated their nuclear capability. So if your son or daughter is now being airlifted into Carg Island, what are they there for? What is the
Right.
point of this right now? I actually had I won't say it was a heated debate, but it was intense. I was down in Dallas yesterday, as you know, at an event at Southern Methodist University, beautiful
Oh,
campus, by the
yeah.
way. And I was talking to somebody who was I think they were Republican. I don't think they were MAGA, but he was asking about like how do neocons feel about Iran? Because if you're not in favor of, if something like, someone like you, if you're not in favor of what we're doing in Iran, it's just because it's Donald Trump. I mean, you would be in
Right. It's
favor of this,
Trump
but it's just, you
derangement
know,
syndrome.
well, and,
Right.
and and I pushed back and I said, no, I think that is exactly this is a legitimate point that no matter how you feel about the war, it is legitimate to say you do not want to go to war with this man. You do not want to put your sons and daughters' lives at risk under the leadership of Donald Trump. That Donald Trump is uniquely unsuited to be the commander in chief, uniquely dangerous as a war president. So it is not hypocritical and it is not self-contradictory for the hawks of the past to say, "Whoa, no, we do not have to go to war with this president." And I think that is playing out every single day.
Yeah.
With even Laura Ingraham saying, does he have does he have a fucking clue what he's doing?
Right. I also do think that the you know nobody has explained to us why we started this war. I mean, the regime is terrible, but
Yes,
so is
evil.
what's happening with Putin in Russia and Ukraine. Like, Russia just invaded Ukraine. I mean, like, if you're talking about a war, getting involved in a war, and we did not get involved in that war, which would
No, we
have
did
at
not.
least made a little bit more sense than just attacking Iran because they might have nukes, but they might not, but we didn't know, but we bombed them, so they're gone. I mean, we did not get a real straight answer on why we were doing this. And also you have to articulate what victory would look like.
No, one of the big questions is what is Donald Trump's capacity for absorbing pain at this
Right.
moment? I mean, he's all in bluster, but so far, and I don't want to minimize the damage. I mean, so far the casualties have been held down. One big incident will change the dynamic completely. Remember what happened in Afghanistan when
Mhm.
we had a dozen troops who were killed in a single suicide bombing. I don't know what his capacity is. A part of his hubris is that he thinks that you can go in and one and done and it's easy. I mean, the fact that
Right.
he remember he kept mentioning Venezuela. You go in and you don't lose
Right.
anybody. It's clean and it's done. I think that he was so delusional that he thought the same thing would happen with Iran, even though anyone who has studied this issue would say Iran and Venezuela are completely different cultures, completely different
Right.
political environments. The
But it
military
also
situation is not
right.
comparable at all.
But also Venezuela, it's not like we went and did regime change. We went
No.
and took the president, put him and his wife in jail. Also, not entirely clear why, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because he did a dance, because oil, because he's a bad leader, put him in jail. Now
Yeah.
have his vice president in charge. I mean,
Right, right.
yeah,
But, I mean, let's go back to the fact that, that the Iranian regime are bad guys, and they
right.
are. They are
Yeah, for
oppressive, and
sure.
they're an evil regime. Well, so is Kim Jong Un
Right.
in North Korea, and Vladimir Putin in Russia, and these are two of Donald Trump's BFS. So
Yeah.
really, what we're seeing here is and I was reading an article describing this as international gangsterism.
Yes.
One of the entire points of post-war America and World War II was to rid the world of the international gangsterism of Germany
Hmm.
and Japan, and you create a world order that had some sort of stability. And what Donald Trump is basically saying is, no, let's go back to that. Let's go back to the international gangsterism. And so it's not a matter of principle. We're not a shining city on a hill.
Hmm.
We're going to do with the other thugs in the world have done and are getting away with. And by the way, this story of the Russians giving the Iranians specific satellite targeting information of the American base in Saudi Arabia is, I think, somewhat underappreciated because Donald Trump continues to, look the other way.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians, who have tremendous intelligence, are saying, "Look, the evidence is overwhelming that the Russians are now giving the Iranians information to target Americans." I mean,
Yeah.
how is this not and Donald Trump not blinking an eye?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and
you know,
he let the Russian oil tanker into
un
Cuba
oh,
when his whole thing was
blinked.
blockaded. Yeah.
Okay, by the way, now that's
Yeah.
interesting because at some point, we're like, nobody's bringing oil to Cuba. Nobody's bringing oil to Cuba. And
Well,
at some point, Vladimir Putin said, we're bringing the oil. Oh, you have a choice. You're going to blow up our ship? What are you going to do? And Donald Trump blinked. Donald
yeah.
Trump would not stop that ship.
Nope. Charlie Sykes, I hope you'll come back.
Anytime, anytime.